Music store worker told Miles Davis a trumpet was too advanced. His response became legendary. Miles Davis walked into Sam Ash Music Store in Midtown Manhattan on a Saturday afternoon, just browsing. A crowd had gathered around the premium brass section, where a session musician was demonstrating an expensive custom trumpet. The musician, running through impressive classical exercises, noticed Miles looking at the instrument with interest and said loudly, "This trumpet is a $15,000 custom professional model. It's too advanced for casual players. You need serious chops to really understand what it can do." Miles nodded politely and asked, "Can I try it when you're done?" The session musician looked Miles up and down. Just a regular guy in jeans and a dark sweater, no flashy musician look, and replied condescendingly, "Sure, but be careful. This isn't a student horn. Don't hurt yourself trying to play stuff you heard on some jazz record." Miles smiled and said, "I'll be careful." What happened in the next 3 minutes became the most legendary music store moment in New York history. It was a Saturday afternoon in October 1987, and Miles Davis was doing something he did regularly despite being famous: browsing music stores. He loved looking at new instruments, testing equipment, and staying current with what was available. Usually he went to smaller, specialized shops where the staff knew him. But today he decided to check out Sam Ash, one of the biggest music retailers in Manhattan. He was wearing jeans, a black cashmere sweater, and his signature dark sunglasses pushed up on his head. To most people, he just looked like another well-dressed, middle-aged black man shopping for instruments. Miles was browsing the professional brass section, looking at high-end trumpets and flugelhorns, when he noticed a crowd gathering. A man in his early 30s, wearing an expensive suit, perfectly groomed, with the look of someone trying very hard to appear successful, was demonstrating instruments for potential customers. The demonstrator was technically proficient, playing classical etudes and jazz standards with the kind of precise, conservatory-trained approach that impressed amateur players. He was working for the store that day. Miles realized, a freelance musician hired to help sell expensive instruments to customers who wouldn't know the difference between good playing and great artistry. The session musician, his name tag said Richard, was currently playing a beautiful gold-plated trumpet, a custom professional model with hand-engraved detailing. He was running through scales, playing some bebop licks, showing what the instrument could do. "This is the Monette Prana 3, Richard announced to the small crowd. "Handcrafted by Dave Monette himself, gold-plated brass, custom lead pipe. This is a $15,000 instrument. When you play something this sophisticated, you can feel the difference immediately. It responds to professional technique in ways that student horns simply can't match." Miles watched with interest. The trumpet did have a beautiful tone. Richard was a competent player, though his approach was mechanical. Lots of technical display, but no soul, no personal voice. He knew his scales and could demonstrate the instrument's capabilities, but Miles could tell he'd never found his own sound. Richard noticed Miles standing at the edge of the crowd, looking intently at the Monette. "You interested in this one?" Richard called out. "It's beautiful," Miles said. "Great sound. It should be for 15 grand. Richard said with a laugh. "This is a professional instrument. Not for everyone, but if you know what you're doing, it's incredible." He played another impressive run up the horn's range. The crowd murmured appreciatively. "Can I try it when you're done?" Miles asked. Richard looked at Miles for the first time with real attention. He saw a regular-looking black man, probably in his 50s, wearing casual clothes. Not the typical customer for a $15,000 trumpet. Richard's expression shifted to friendly but condescending. "Sure, but I should warn you, this trumpet is pretty advanced. It's not set up like a typical rental horn. The resistance is different. The intonation is extremely precise, and it responds very sensitively to embouchure and breath support. It takes serious chops to really understand what it can do." "I understand," Miles said mildly. "And please be careful with it," Richard continued. "This is a $15,000 instrument. I'm responsible for anything that happens to it. So no aggressive playing, no trying to recreate stuff you heard on some Blue Note record. Just be gentle with it. Miles smiled. I'll be careful. Richard finished his demonstration with a flourish. A fast, chromatic run, ending in a high concert, C. The crowd applauded politely. He carefully removed the mouthpiece, wiped down the trumpet, and held it out toward Miles. Here you go. Take your time. But remember, easy does it. This is a delicate, high-end instrument. Miles took the trumpet, adjusted it in his hands, and inserted his own mouthpiece that he always carried. He played a few soft notes, getting a feel for the instrument's resistance and intonation. It was indeed a beautiful horn. Then Miles started to play. He began with the opening phrase from Kind of Blue, that iconic, haunting melody that had defined cool jazz in 1959. But he played it with a mute, using his hand to create that distinctive, intimate sound that every jazz musician in the world recognized instantly. Richard's expression changed from wariness to confusion to absolute shock. In about 3 seconds, his mouth literally fell open. The few people who'd been walking away stopped mid-step and turned around. Someone dropped their sheet music. A teenager who'd been testing a saxophone put it down and rushed over. More people started gathering from other parts of the store. The guitar section, the piano area, even customers from the checkout line. Miles kept playing, moving through the Kind of Blue melody with that effortless phrasing that had revolutionized jazz. His tone was immediately recognizable, that dark, brooding sound with perfect intonation, the way he bent notes just slightly to create maximum emotional impact. The melody transitioned into an improvised solo that showcased not just technical ability, but profound musical intelligence. Miles played with space and silence, letting notes breathe, creating tension and release with the kind of mastery that can't be taught. Someone in the growing crowd gasped and said loudly, "Oh my God, that's Miles Davis." Richard's face went from white to red. He looked at the person who'd spoken, then at Miles, then back at the person, as if seeking confirmation that this couldn't possibly be real. Miles transitioned smoothly into So What, that distinctive bass line played on trumpet, then moved into the classic solo that had made him famous. Every phrase was perfect, not just technically, but emotionally. He was making the $15,000 motet sound like it was singing, like it was telling its own story. The crowd had grown to maybe 50 people now, forming a semicircle around Miles. Phones appeared, recording this impossible moment. Store employees had abandoned their stations and were watching with stunned expressions. The store manager had emerged from the back office, recognized what was happening, and was simultaneously thrilled and panicking about protocol for when actual jazz legends casually showed up in your store. A young trumpet student in the crowd was literally trembling with excitement. An older musician was shaking his head in disbelief, mouthing "No way," over and over. Richard stood frozen, still holding his arms crossed, but now he looked like someone who'd just watched the laws of physics get suspended. Miles played for maybe 3 minutes total, ending with a soft, sustained note that he let fade to silence. The crowd erupted in applause and cheers. Miles carefully removed his mouthpiece and held the trumpet out to Richard, who looked like he might faint. "You're right," Miles said quietly. "It's a beautiful instrument, very responsive. The intonation is incredibly pure." Richard took the trumpet with trembling hands. You're Miles Davis." "I am. I just told Miles Davis that he shouldn't try to play stuff he heard on Blue Note records," Richard said, seeming to be in shock. "I told you to be gentle because this is an advanced trumpet. I said it takes serious chops." "You were doing your job," Miles said kindly. "You didn't know who I was. You were protecting an expensive instrument from a random customer. That's responsible." "But I was so condescending," Richard said. "I said it was too advanced for casual players. To you, Miles Davis." The crowd was loving this. Still recording, some people laughing with delight at the situation. Miles shrugged. "To be fair, I am a casual player today. I just casually stopped in to look at instruments. You weren't wrong about the trumpet being responsive. It really is a beautiful horn. You demonstrated it well." "I demonstrated a trumpet to Miles Davis," Richard said, still processing. "You literally created half the techniques I was trying to show off." The store manager had pushed through the crowd and reached Miles. "Mr. Davis, this is an incredible honor. Can we offer you anything? Would you like to try other instruments? Can we get you—" "I'm fine, thank you," Miles said. "I was just browsing." Richard here gave a good demonstration of that monet. Very professional. He turned back to Richard. "Can I give you some advice? Not about playing, you play well, but about demonstrating instruments." Richard, still holding the $15,000 trumpet like it might spontaneously combust, nodded mutely. "When you demonstrate a trumpet," Miles said, "don't just show off techniques. Show the instrument's voice. Every horn is different. This monet has a warm, focused sound. It's responsive and expressive. Those are its strengths. Demonstrate those qualities, not just your ability to play fast runs." He took the trumpet back from Richard for a moment. "Listen." He played a simple melody, just a few phrases from Round Midnight, but shaped each note differently. Showed how the trumpet responded to subtle changes in breath and embouchure. The horn sang under his hands, demonstrating tonal colors and dynamic range with effortless control. See, that's what this trumpet does well. It's expressive, it's personal. You can hear every subtle inflection. That's what sells a $15,000 instrument. Not speed, but soul. He handed it back to Richard. "You're a good player. You just need to remember that you're introducing people to the instrument, not auditioning for a chair in someone's band." Richard nodded, looking like he'd just received a master class from the master himself. "Thank you, Mr. Davis. And I am so sorry for the way I spoke to you." "Don't be sorry," Miles said. "You didn't recognize me. You were protecting an expensive instrument, and you were trying to do your job well. Those are good things. The only mistake you made was assuming that how someone looks determines how well they can play. But that's a lesson everyone learns eventually." Miles started to leave, but the crowd wanted photos and autographs. He spent 20 minutes accommodating everyone, signing album covers that people pulled from their bags, giving advice to young players in the crowd, and being gracious about the whole situation. Richard approached him again as Miles was finally heading toward the exit. "Mr. Davis, can I ask you something?" "Sure. When I told you the trumpet was too advanced for casual players, did you know immediately you were going to school me?" Miles laughed. One of his rare, genuine laughs. "School you, Richard? I wasn't trying to school you. I genuinely wanted to try the trumpet. You gave me permission. I played it. That's all that happened." "But you played kind of blue," Richard pointed out. "You could have just played some scales and left. Instead, you played one of the most famous trumpet pieces ever recorded. That was sending a message." Miles considered that. "Okay, maybe a little," he admitted, with a slight smile. "But in my defense, you did tell me not to play stuff I heard on Blue Note records. I played stuff I recorded for Columbia 40 years ago. Technically, I followed your instructions." Richard laughed, despite his embarrassment. "That's a fair point. Richard, you're a good player, and you seem like a good guy," Miles said. "Don't beat yourself up about this. You're going to have a great story to tell forever. That time I told Miles Davis he couldn't handle an advanced trumpet. People will love that story. I would." After Miles left, Richard did indeed tell that story frequently. It became his signature anecdote, the story he'd tell at sessions and gigs for the rest of his career. "I learned 2 things that day," Richard would say. "First, never assume you know someone's ability based on how they look. The guy in the casual clothes might be a legend. Second, Miles Davis could have destroyed me. He could have made me look like an idiot in front of 50 people. Instead, he was kind. He gave me advice, and he turned a moment where I'd been condescending into a teaching moment. That's class. That's what separates good players from great ones. Not just technical skill, but grace." The video someone recorded of Miles playing the monet went viral in the early days of YouTube, getting hundreds of thousands of views. The comments were full of people loving the story. The session musician's face when he realizes who he's talking to. Miles Davis being told not to play blue note licks, and the casual, "I'll be careful before playing kind of blue." Sam Ash put up a small plaque near the professional brass section. On this spot, October 1987, Miles Davis was told a trumpet was too advanced for him. He was careful with it. When Miles died in 1991, Richard posted a tribute in several music magazines, including the story. In 1987, I condescended to Miles Davis about trumpet playing. He responded with grace, kindness, and a master class in both music and humanity. He could have humiliated me. Instead, he taught me. That's who Miles Davis was. A man who never had to prove he was the greatest, because everyone already knew it. Rest in peace to a legend who carried himself with dignity even when he had every right to put someone in their place. The story became part of Miles Davis lore, told and retold in music schools and jazz clubs around the world. It perfectly captured who Miles was in his later years. Confident enough to be humble, secure enough to be kind, and wise enough to turn every encounter into a teaching moment. It also became a cautionary tale for music store employees everywhere. The customer you're condescending to might just be the person who invented the music you're trying to demonstrate. But mostly, it was a story about grace under pressure, about how true masters handle disrespect, and about the difference between playing music and being a musician. Miles Davis didn't just play better than everyone else, he carried himself better too. If this story of humility, grace, and the power of not having to prove yourself moved you, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell. Share this video with anyone who needs to understand that real masters don't need to show off. They just need to be themselves. Have you ever been underestimated and gotten the chance to prove someone wrong gracefully? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to check out more stories about the moments when legends reminded us what true class looks like.